The other big news from the summit, Nigel, Farage, is that there's a whole set of financial regulations that will be agreed, or the support will be given to it at the G20, and that was very much the sort of weight that people like Sarkozy and Angela Merkel wanted to put. Do you think that was the right thing to do?
Not from a British perspective, no. I mean, financial services, the City of London, has been the biggest part of our economy for many, many years, indeed for centuries. And the whole point about the City of London is that it's not a European financial centre, it's a global financial centre. And when I hear Adair Turner, who runs our FSA, saying that in future Britain will not try and compete with light-touch regulation, I'm very worried indeed for the future of our financial services. Business will go to Bermuda, business will go to Zurich.
Partly what was going on in the city that caused this in the first place.
Oh, hang on a second.
And the time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining. The banks are not at the moment bringing out imaginative new products, so let's use this time to get the regulatory framework right and get the supervisory bodies in place.
It was the regulators that failed, Graham. Had the Bank of England been looking after our banks rather than a bunch of civil servants at the FSA down in Canary Wharf, I have a feeling the red lights would have flashed very much more quickly.
The other thing, I mean, there's been an awful lot of horse trading at this summit, and a lot of buying things off, and that, particularly in that area where they had this package for energy, Stefan Singer. Now, some of the Green MEPs from the Parliament are saying to us, and we heard from Rebecca Harms, that the green economy and the commitment to that seems to be really lacking in this summit and what was agreed. Do you think that's true? Because there is stuff for offshore wind and carbon capture storage, that kind of thing.
Yes, indeed. There are a couple of crumbs which have been distributed to the European economy, which are part of the recovery plans. And that's okay for the start. Which is not okay are the Council conclusions on supporting developing countries to help them to fight climate change, to adapt them to climate change. That is a fundamental defeat of the European Union. They have caved away, they have ducked the issue, and it is a recipe for defeat in Copenhagen, going to developing countries and saying, there's no money from us, we need to see your action first. That is a breach of the agreement which was taken in Bali at the climate summit 1 year ago. The EU has heavily disappointed WWF and the global civil society here.
He's got a point, hasn't he, Graham?
Well, you can always argue we should do more, and I share Stefan's view that we should be doing more. But I think that what has been taken root very firmly here is a recognition that we cannot go back to the kind of growth we had before. We need a qualitatively different approach, and that means we've got to be investing in the kind of trans-European networks which are going to give us a more sustainable growth in the future. We've got to be investing in solar thermal power, in wind and wave power, in biomass and geothermal, and much of the money that is foreseen for reflating the economy at European level is going into precisely that kind of project.
But aren't we left with a huge problem here? That we've already invested a large amount of money and made a massive commitment towards, for example, wind power, and the realisation is that actually it doesn't really work. It's only effective for 28%. It doesn't work, and we've got countries in the EU who are facing within the next decade
Nigel,
the possibility
wind
of
power
massive...
produces almost 20% of Denmark's total electricity consumption. It's working perfectly.
Not during a winter when you have a huge anticyclone that sits over northern Europe. That's the problem.
You know, we used to have a Bank of England that used to regulate our banking sector, stuffed with people who were genuine experts in the field and who really knew what was going on, and we've taken away from them real responsibility for managing the banking sector, and we've handed it to a group of civil servants who interpret European Union directives. We had better regulation in financial services 20 years ago.
Had the Bank of England been looking after our banks rather than a bunch of civil servants at the FSA down in Canary Wharf, I have a feeling the red lights would have flashed very much more quickly. To find out more about who we are and what we stand for, go to the UK Independence Party website at www.ukip.org.